Part 11. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huixiang. Chapter 106. Affected by the summer, when Rina was cooking today, she also placed a plate of iced watermelon on the dining table. There is a saying that since coming to Japan, the frequency of Qian Yufengma eating watermelon has dropped sharply. The main reason is that watermelons in Japan are really expensive. In my hometown, everyone buys watermelon by the piece. This piece, I almost buy it by the piece. This also gave Asahi Kazuma stronger motivation, such as realizing the freedom to eat melons and so on. After the meal was over and he was full, he was about to get up and help Ishihara Rina clear the table, but Rina forcibly pressed him down and kept shaking his head to prevent him from clearing the table. Kinya Kazuma had no choice but to accept it. He felt that if he continued like this, he would gradually become a homebody and a loser from his previous ability to do housework. But he looked carefully at Rina's feet, who were washing dishes in the kitchen. This was not an illusion. He always felt that Rina's feet looked whiter and tenderer. It could only be said that this talent was unique. Until after finishing the meal, Ishihara Rina's face was always red. She didn't know what she was thinking about. Anyway, Asahi Kazuma had seen enough. In order to ease her mood, Asahi Kazuma could only choose to go to the balcony. Looking at his school uniform that was still drying on the balcony, he reached out and touched it, but it was still wet. It seems that there is really no way to go home tonight. There were a lot of empty rooms in Rina's house, but she didn't take care of the rooms that could be used for sleeping. In the end, after hesitating for a moment, she chose to let him come to sleep with her in her bedroom. The kind with separate beds. This feeling was quite subtle, which made him joke, "Sister is actually obedient now." Yes, Asahi Kazuma's previous declaration of eating her dry if I do it again made her restrain herself a little. Although she looked eager to get him to go to bed, in the end she was still a little timid and curled up into a flannel ball on the bed with a pillow. Chien Kazuma hesitated for a moment, then said, "I have basically finished handling the follow-up work you need to do. As I said, I redrawn a batch of them based on the storyboards I gave you before. Don't think about work tonight, come and study with me." Ishihara Rina nodded and did not refuse. Although she didn't know what he wanted to learn, she felt at ease staying next to him. "Are you going to learn high school knowledge?" Rina Ishihara said timidly. Asahi Kazuma then remembered that because of her parents' affairs, she had just dropped out of high school and stayed home before she finished high school. Thinking of this, he shook his head and said, "No, there are some musical issues that need to be dealt with." Rina Ishihara's eyes widened. "Music?" Asahi Kazuma nodded. "Please, your superb violin playing skills can't be wasted like this, right?" It's not that Asahi Kazuma has never thought about acting as a porter to another world before, but since he doesn't know anything about music scores, he can't always go to professional musicians to listen to him hum songs, right? Secondly, to be honest, he doesn't remember a lot of music that clearly. It's not an easy task to reproduce the original version. But now, with the talent of extensive knowledge, he has new plans for his future. There is really no way to do it. The educated knowledge adjustment gene is still superior to Rina's two adjustment genes to a certain extent, at least for Asahi Kazuma. Boen Kyangji, special adjustment genes based on brain enhancement can make the adjuster more difficult to forget after absorbing new knowledge. The more knowledge you absorb, the easier it is to create linkages between knowledge and knowledge, improving the foundation of other knowledge. To put it bluntly, with this thing, as long as you have enough knowledge, even if you don't study in the relevant field, it will be affected and your growth will be affected. Just like mathematics and physics, generally speaking, the growth of mathematics can lead to the improvement of physics level to a certain extent. And this driving effect has become more obvious with the support of Kyangji. Although Asahi Kazuma couldn't feel the obvious change himself, Ishihara Rina actually felt it vaguely. His painting techniques even surpassed the level of painting techniques mastered by Rina in the dream. This is not the scariest thing. Boan Kyangji, if you want to use this ability better, you need to have enough learning knowledge. However, even a genius can only learn and master limited knowledge. In other words, theoretically, Boan Kyangji can turn a person from a genius who specializes in a certain field to an all-rounder who specializes in all aspects. But, considering the speed of knowledge acquisition and the impact of human lifespan, this ability cannot be fully utilized. Unless it's himself. After all, in terms of simply mastering relevant knowledge and skills, how many people can compare to Asaba Kazuma, who is able to absorb the ability of a love simulation partner, and can also redeem the relevant knowledge and technology developed by his future self in the love simulation through the achievement store? Putting this talent on yourself and putting it on an ordinary adjuster, the effect can be said to be very different. Asaba Kazuma quietly glanced at Ishihara Rina, reached out and rubbed her hair and said, "I'm just trying to make some music scores. It's just a hobby. It's also a good thing to have more channels to make money." Ishihara Rina nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She believed in him, although she felt that music was not that simple, and she did not see him engaging in music-related matters in her dreams. "It's tennis." Rina Ishihara snickered softly. Lily-chan sent her a message while she was cooking, complaining that she was about to be beaten by Kazuma's tennis balls. Thinking of this, she puffed up her chest proudly. Her knight is very good at sports. Seeing that he was already busy, Ishihara Rina didn't say anything, but just watched him quietly. From time to time, I would go downstairs and cut some fruit for him. She just vaguely saw that his favorite fruit should be watermelon, and it was also the thicker piece of meat. When he was eating, the expression on his face was obviously different. Watermelon is a bit expensive. Ishihara Rina couldn't help but think so. She thought for a moment and felt that it was time to set some small goals for the future. For example, make enough money to help him realize the freedom of eating watermelon. Wow, do you really still have to find a way to start with comics? The outsourcing fee settled by the animation studio for her was quite sufficient. To be precise, what is lacking is the startup capital to complete the entire project, but in terms of employee salaries, it is not just a matter of digging around. After all, there is still a foundation. So during this period, Rina's wallet, which had been shrinking over the years, uncharacteristically started to make more deposits. Her daily expenses are not large, and the balance in her savings is enough to sustain her for a long time. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. In the dream, she once handed her family's bank card directly to Kazuma. But she knew that he would not accept it if she handed over the bank book directly. After all, it was the life-saving money left behind by his parents after their accident. But now she has more than one bank card. Ishihara Rina ran downstairs with a bang, and soon ran up with a bank card. Asahi Kazuma's eyelids twitched, subconsciously thinking that he was back in the simulation again, but when he took a closer look, he found that the bank card looked quite familiar. "The one I asked someone to apply for you before." Ishihara Rina nodded. Qian Yufengjian hesitated for a moment. Although he had some kind of answer in his mind, he still asked one more question: "Why did you bring the card up?" "Pocket money." She raised her head hard, as if she wanted to say something proudly. Then he glanced at his burning eyes and lowered his head. You want to eat fruit snacks, but you can buy them directly with this card. If you buy too much, just bring it to my house and we can eat it together." Chapter 2 will be posted in 10 minutes. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 107. Qian Yufengjian was silent. After a while, he got up and got his school bag. He rummaged through the compartments of his school bag, took out a bank card from the card holder, and handed it over. Meal expenses, my comic remuneration will be remitted directly to it, keep it well, and when you buy too much food, just call me to help you digest it. Maybe I might happen to buy some extra fruit for snacks then. The pure royalties in this card are not too much, and it is also one of his daily cards. For example, the income from light novels and subsequent construction uses another card. During this time, he was asking someone to set up a studio and use corporate channels. After all, he would have many ways to make money in the future. If he worked as an individual, the proportion of taxes he would have to pay would be staggering. He forced the card into her hand forcefully, and then took the card from her hand. Asaba Kazuma raised his head and glanced at Ishihara Rina. Rina's exposed eyes looked at him quietly, pure and clear. The waves in her eyes and the smile contained in the slightly upturned corners of her eyes had a bone-gnawing taste. That is to say, she rarely goes out, otherwise many girls among her peers would subconsciously lower their heads when facing her. Then next time I buy too much, you must come," she said quietly. Asahi Kazuma nodded. Anyway, even if he didn't come to her place to eat, he would basically order takeout. "I'm so busy, how can I have time to cook for myself?" Seeing that he agreed, Rina's expression became cheerful. Asahi Kazuma had already retracted his gaze at this time, stood up and said, "Sister Rina, lend me your computer." "Good." Chien-Yu Kazuma came to the computer and searched for relevant news about Faishi Entertainment Co., Ltd. The game Kyunulu under Faishi Entertainment is most likely the predecessor of Kyunulu, Love is War 2077 by Kinyu Kazuma Golden Finger. Now that the majority of the animation studio's decision-making power has been completed, Asaba Kazuma also needs to start planning how to swallow up this rapidly expanding game company. Fai's Entertainment. Chien-Yu Fengjian fell into deep thought. This company has begun to move on the fast track. As expected, for a long time to come, this company will become a scene that is difficult to ignore in the Japanese gaming era at an extremely fast rate. As for the reason, let's put it this way, the opening sentence directed at his golden finger, the Birthrate Countermeasures Committee and Faishi Entertainment Co., Ltd. is worth his gamble. First, Chien-Yu Kazuma will never allow a company that has a certain connection with his golden finger to be controlled by others, and he will not allow others to sleep on the side of the bed. Second, although there have been considerable changes in the development of finance and technology in this life, some things will not fade away with the times so easily, such as music and games. With the support of past life memories, some cultural and entertainment industries can really be reproduced in this world as long as they master the technology. Faishi Entertainment is a good intervention point. It is not yet particularly large in size, and if you penetrate it, you have a chance to reap the dividends of growth, and you can use it as a springboard to penetrate into other game fields. The premise is, that it can penetrate. "Master, are you very interested in Kyunulu?" Rina, standing next to Asaba Kazuma, said softly. "Huh? From what I heard from my sister, you seem to have played this game before." Ishihara Rina nodded and said, "The characters and plot of this game are quite likable. Lily-chan recommended me to play it before. It's quite interesting. Indeed, when I played it at home before, I thought its plot setting was quite interesting. In other words, this game has a bit of industrial saccharine flavor, but fortunately it is not pure saccharine, and it is not really crazy. It sets up for you that the heroine Baichi meets the hero Asasai, and then they immediately get tired of each other and start blindly Jill sprinkle saccharine. When he traveled through time in his previous life, he remembered that there was even a certain light novel that was about to be adapted into a manga. When the male protagonist was preparing to start a happy relationship with Baichi's girlfriend, he specifically asked the senior who passed her through her, how to make his girlfriend satisfy. There is a saying, this kind of plot is so suffocating that if it were released in the domestic online literary circle, It would probably be criticized by readers and become famous in book circles, but it can be directly animated in Lost Japan. Where does this sense of immersion come from? I can only say that it's terrifying to think about it. Asaba Kazuma smiled and chatted with Rina for a long time, and suddenly changed the topic. Speaking of which, is the Lily-chan you're talking about Lily Garcia? She had never come to school before, but she suddenly came to class today, which really surprised me. Qian Yufengjian said calmly. Ishihara Rina's expression froze instantly, and she said with a frustrated look, you know everything. Kinyo Kazuma spread his hands and said, it's just a wild guess. Rina stood a little uneasy, her toes scratching the floor, feeling both the panic after being discovered and the embarrassment after her little thoughts were exposed. It's just a matter of carving out 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. It's just that her online name hasn't changed much. It's really easy to make people suspicious, so I asked out of curiosity. Don't think too much. Asaba Kazuma couldn't tell her that he knew about the relationship between the two during the love simulation, so after seeing Lily and making a little association, he basically guessed why she suddenly came to school. I just want to trouble her to find out about you. There is no harm in it. Rina Ishihara said anxiously. Kinyo Kazuma shook his head and said softly, next time you want to know my situation, just ask me directly, or... Ishihara Rina felt that he was not angry, so she quietly raised her head and glanced, or... You can come to the school to find me directly, Asahi Kazuma said after hesitating for a moment. After saying this, he regretted it. A girl from another school secretly came to school to look for him. If word spread about it, he wouldn't care whether it caused a big fuss or not, but... If Shiana Yuin heard it? For some reason, Qian Yu shivered in the wind. Hakiu. Shiana's house, Shiana Uman suddenly sneezed. Somehow, she seemed to feel someone talking about her. Asahi Kazuma finally recognized what he just said. He didn't want to see a sad look on the happy face of Ishihara Rina, whether in simulation or reality. Therefore, even though he knew there were risks, he still made a promise. Uncle Campus Police, you must do a good job preventing people from outside the school from entering the school. In the end, Asaba Kazuma had no choice but to put this heavy burden on the school police. Let's get down to business, sister, you have also played Kyunyulu. What do you think of Fi's entertainment? Rina Ishihara thought for a moment and said, the third-rate graphics, first-rate characters and second-rate plot are pretty good in Gal game. The main thing is that they are easier to play. After all, there is quite a lot of pressure in society now, and players are not interested in listening to game developers teach them how to play games. Being able to do so is already great. It's small, but also very cute. Asaba Kazuma summed up the evaluation. Rina smiled shyly. Although she knew that he was talking about the scale of Fi's entertainment, these somewhat naughty words always made him feel unspeakably shy when they came out of his mouth. In order to suppress this shyness, she reached out and picked up a grape from the fruit plate, carefully peeled off the skin, and handed it to his mouth, as if hoping that he would eat more grapes and talk less. Kinyu Fengji unfrowned, and when swallowing the grape, she also sipped her soft fingertips. Rina couldn't hide her shyness and pulled her hand back. I still want to eat fruit, Qian Kazuma said shamelessly. Ishihara Rina picked up a toothpick, picked up a small piece of apple and handed it over. Asa Kazuma shook his head, I don't want a fork. Then he turned his head away as if he was angry and continued to look at the computer. Seeing that he really didn't eat it, Ishihara Rina silently put down the fruit. After a while, she ate the fruit and went downstairs. When it came back, there was another batch of fresh fruits. She moved a stool to sit next to Asaba Kazuma, put down the fruit plate, and whispered. Freshly washed, chilled, eat. This time, she handed it to him with her hand. The hands had obviously been carefully washed and still smelled of hand sanitizer. Asahi Kazuma had a smile in her eyes. He just saw his sister being cute, but he couldn't hold it back for a while and bullied her again. He didn't expect that she would be so obedient and did as he asked. I felt a little happy and a little guilty for a while. If I go too far, would you still consider agreeing? Ishihararina didn't speak, just thought silently. Looking at her eyes, she seemed to be really considering it. Kinyu Kazuma suddenly felt a little distressed. He grabbed her hand and said, "Sister, come sit in front of me and think about how we can defeat the strong with the weak and swallow up Fi's entertainment." After a while, he said in the ear of Rina, who was carefully sitting in front of the chair, "If you want to go to the bathroom, don't hold back, or I will carry my sister directly to the toilet." Ishihararina blushed and nodded. This threat is quite effective. "Master, Shi Entertainment is making money right now, and it's not that easy to be acquired," Rina said. Chienu Kazuma nodded and said with a smile, "So I'm wondering if I should take some crooked ways." Crooked ways? Well, for example, let's make their hit game look like ours first. Ishihararina was curious, what to do? Listen to me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Xiang. Chapter 108. Sounds interesting. Ishihararina couldn't help but have an interesting smile on her face after listening to what Asahi Kazuma said. Right, if we want to take control of this company, we can't do it directly, we have to let them take the initiative. Asahi Kazuma smiled with squinted eyes, his expression looked malicious, but it was still pretty. "Master is really too bad," Rina Ishihara muttered softly. "Then sister, do you want to join in?" Qian Yufengjian took a grape from her fingertips and swallowed it in one gulp. Ishihararina nodded, his appearance reflected in her eyes. "As long as he wants it." That night, Asahi Kazuma failed to return home smoothly. When he got up in the morning, he was missing a few textbooks and could only put on the clean school uniform. With Rina's reluctant expression, he went back to the apartment. After changing the textbooks, he was ready to go downstairs and take the bus to school. Why did Xiaofengjian come back at this time? On the way down, Asahi Kazuma bumped into his aunt and landlord. Asahi Kazuma said casually, "I went to a friend's house to play all night." When the landlord heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up and a gossipy expression appeared on his face. "Is it a girl?" The first thing she thought of was the girl named Xiana Yuan whom she met last time. Not to mention, that girl is so pretty. It's a pity that I didn't have time to talk in detail at that time. I just said a few words and then left. Otherwise, I should have taken a photo and sent it to my sister to let her know that Xiaofengjian is also starting to attract bees and butterflies. Asahi Kazuma did not reply directly. He didn't like to share this kind of thing with others. After waving his hand, he said, "Auntie, I am in a hurry to go to school and will come back later to bring you some good ingredients." Occasionally he would still go to his aunt's house for dinner. After all, he was both a relative and the landlord. "But my aunt's family doesn't actually live here often." It was a rare trip back this time, so Kinha Kazuma also planned to buy something to send there, as a way to welcome her aunt and family back. Okay. The landlord had a kind smile on his face. Although Asahi Kazuma did not reply directly, the landlord was older and still saw some clues. It was Chienu Kazuma who didn't pay attention to her aunt. She didn't know that someone had started stealing the house quietly, so she was naturally too lazy to pretend anything. The subtle smile on her face was instantly obvious to the visiting aunt. Well, this time the serious aunt smiled. However, Asahi Kazuma didn't see it, he had already ran downstairs at this time. "It's strange," Isn't Xiaofengjian's running speed too fast? Looking upstairs at Kinha Kazuma, who had suddenly rushed downstairs, he was a little surprised for a moment. Is it because he hasn't been sick recently? The whole morning passed quietly like this. Before get out of class ended in the morning, Hayakawa Haruna on the stage lightly knocked on the blackboard and said, "For the four-school joint entrance examination next month, you should show a little more courage as a student of Bian High School. Don't embarrass the school. The joint entrance examination of the four schools. Ah, it turns out to be that one." Asahi Kazuma thought about it for a while, and finally found information about the joint entrance examination of the four schools from the corner of the simulated memory implanted in his mind. In Shiina Kane's simulation, when he was chatting with Kane, he once heard Kane mention that he hoped he could do better in the joint examination of the four schools. It's a leftover memory that he usually doesn't notice in the simulation. But in reality, the importance of the four-school joint entrance exam is a different concept for sophomores and juniors at Bian High School. But the memories instilled by the love simulation are not all memories, only a small part of them are actually instilled. He had heard of this exam when he was in the actual entrance class, but it seemed that only students in the special entrance class participated in this exam. It is said that if all schools participated, there would be too many people, so only the group with the best results were selected as representatives. Qianyu, come on, try to get good grades, and maybe get a bonus from the school and make a little money. The male classmate sitting in the front row turned his head and said to him with a smile. Asahi Kazuma was curious, can I still earn bonuses in this exam? Too much. If there are more, then don't blame him for being ruthless. The joint entrance examination of the four schools. Ah, the time is indeed coming, a familiar voice sounded, and Kinya Kazuma looked to his side. Lily Garcia pulled out a chair and sat down. Lily, what happened to the wind today? You came to class 2 days in a row. Some classmates said with a smile. If I were an ordinary person and came to class by myself and heard others say this, I would probably have some opinions. If a joke doesn't make the other person laugh, it's not a joke. Even though Asahi Kazuma would still respond with a smile, it would be difficult to say that he was not unhappy at all. Whether I come or not is none of your business. That's probably the idea. But Lily smiled openly, even a little brightly. Indeed, if it weren't for special reasons, I would probably still be staying at home these 2 days. She glanced at Qianyu Kazuma silently. Lily's mother helps Xiaorina keep track of her online. Isn't this a kind of love? The alarm bell on Asaba Kazuma's head was almost whirring. Oops, with her watching, getting along with Hien in school might be a little troublesome. After all, this guy heard the news, and I'm afraid Rina will also hear the news. Asaba Kazuma controlled his expression well and quickly changed the subject and said, does Lily-chan know a lot about the joint entrance examination of the four schools? Several classmates around him looked over. The female classmate who just teased Lily pointed her chin with her fingertips and said curiously. Lily-chan? Asahi's classmate's name is Lily. It's so affectionate. Ah, no. The relationship between me and us is not the kind of relationship you think. Lily's smiling face became a little at a loss. Seeing some subtle changes in the eyes of several classmates, she looked at Asahi Kazuma with some annoyance. But Asahi Kazuma explained sincerely before she looked over. It's not the kind of relationship you think. I have a very good relationship with another friend of Lily-chan. Besides, if I really have a girlfriend, I will definitely show it openly, because... A smile like a little sun bloomed on Asahi Kazuma's face. My significant other must be someone I like and am willing to bring out and tell everyone about. Everyone who looked at Asaba Kazuma could see from his smile that what he said was true. Some people emphasize the same sentence 100 times, but others don't believe it. And some people will make people feel convinced just by opening their mouths. Asaba Kazuma is the latter. Even Lily's mother, who instinctively felt something was wrong with Asaba Kazuma, had to admit this guy's charm at this moment. Wow, no wonder Rina-chan is obsessed with this guy. If Rina-chan hadn't already set her sights on him, she doubted that she would even be tempted. To be the girl that he can bring out and tell everyone is a very simple sentence, but when it comes out of his mouth, it is inexplicably poignant. This guy should be pretty weird. Lily slightly put away the sting in her words. You haven't heard much about the joint entrance examination of the 4 schools before. Chapter 2 will be updated in 5 minutes. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 109. You haven't heard much about the joint entrance examination of the 4 schools before. She twisted the blonde hair around her ears between her fingers and whispered. Asahi Kazuma shook his head. I was recuperating most of the time before, and I didn't come to school much. I may not understand many things that are common sense to you. No wonder. Lily nodded and said. Tokyo has dense educational resources, far exceeding those in other regions in Japan. Even with better overall teachers, top universities are also competing. The 4-school joint examination was actually a joint examination between the 4 traditional prestigious schools in Tokyo. The purpose was to select sophomores and juniors to use the same set of examination papers, and everyone could compare and contrast the teaching situation after a year. Since a lot of people paid attention that year, it led to the enrollment of outstanding students from 4 traditional prestigious schools, and the project has continued since then. A student on the side nodded and said, actually, now, the joint examination of the 4 schools is no longer the traditional 4 schools of the past, but a joint examination between the strongest high schools in Tokyo. Top public and private universities such as Waseda University High School, Tsukuba University High School, Japan Women's University High School, etc. will participate depending on the situation. Asahi Kazuma nodded to express understanding. Such examinations have always been a way to showcase one's teaching achievements through specific channels. The boy sitting in front of Asaba Kazuma also said, according to statistics, schools with the highest overall rankings can attract students from relatively special families to attend. For example, the children of some congressmen, or the future heirs of capital and consortiums. Although there are not many such people every year, they are certainly not few. Isn't that where Hiratsuka-san lives? A classmate teased the boy. Hiratsuka Menju, who was sitting in front of Asahi Kazuma, shook his head and said, although my family is not bad, it is far from the 3 types of people I just mentioned. As he spoke, his eyes wandered to the empty seat next to Lily, and then he said helplessly. Even if someone enrolls in school, whether they come to class or not is a matter of 1 sentence. Qian Yufengjian didn't care at all. This is the same thing everywhere. Many students who are admitted to good schools based on their academic performance may only realize after leaving school that the people with the highest status they have come into contact with in their lives are the people they met in school. This is true in primary school, secondary school, and university. In this way, it is no wonder that being high school attaches so much importance to the joint examination of the 4 schools. Even a strong school like being high school needs to use actual results to obtain the resources for these children to enroll. These students with special parents' generation may not only bring additional operating funds to the school, but in an island country with a highly dense population and extremely solidified classes, they may even take over the jobs of their parents. When they become excellent alumni, they will be able to greatly consolidate the status of the school itself, and even make donations to their alma mater for the sake of their own reputation. From the school's point of view, if you only need to stand out in the joint entrance examination of the 4 schools, the sponsor will take the initiative to give you money, which is not considered insulting. So, how much is the bonus? Asahi Kazuma was curious. Hiratsuka Menju looked at Asahi Kazuma in surprise. He was just joking and didn't really think Asahi Kazuma could get the bonus. But now it seems that this new classmate has an idea? He did not directly ridicule others for overestimating their abilities, but said gently, "Actually, I also want to get a bonus. After all, I can give an explanation to my parents when I go home and have more bragging rights." Everyone burst into laughter after hearing this. After a while, Hiratsuka Menja continued, "If we still follow the standards of the previous year, if we can get first place in the joint examination of the 4 schools, we can get 4 million yen. Honesty." Hiratsuka Menja nodded. The person who got this money last year was Senior Shianakian, a third-year student. Lily's ears twitched slightly and she said calmly, "I see you and Senior Shiana are not very familiar with each other? I might ask." She quietly threw in a message. Asahi Kazuma glanced at Kimura Ferry. "We have to find a way. Although I'm sure that Lily-chan won't come to school often to keep an eye on her, but it will be difficult to do it occasionally." So he smiled and said, "I am indeed familiar with her. After all, I will have to contact her more in the future." Hearing this, Lily raised her head in surprise. "Is this guy no longer pretending?" Asahi Kazuma raised her eyebrows and said, "After all, I may have to ask her for advice on the violin in the future." The edge revealed in those words made everyone curious. Violin, Lily was a little surprised. "Well, I heard that Shiana-senpai's violin is very good, so I also want to ask her for advice," Asahi Kazuma said seriously. He wasn't lying. For him now, there is no need for her to tutor and study. However, this does not mean that Asahi Kazuma will not have the opportunity to meet Shiana Yuin. Lily, no matter how alert you are, you will never think that I have already told Rina about meeting Hien. This is all part of the plan." Asking Shiana-kian to help, this was his initial plan for Faishan entertainment. She and Rina were the 2 most critical links in this plan. Of course, this does not prevent Asahi Kazuma from trying to delay the time for the 2 of them to meet and get to know each other. Under Lily's surprised gaze, Qian Yufengma ran slowly to the school cafeteria. "If you don't go, the students will buy up all the delicious food inside." 5 minutes later, Asahi Kazuma looked at the canteen where there were not many people queuing up, with an awkward expression. "Misstep." Muttering about the speed of this group of people. Now in the cafeteria, there is no chow mein bread that barely meets his taste. It's okay not to mention the rest. Something like sweet mapo tofu. Seeing this kind of thing made him want to kill someone. Forget it, just get hungry. Kinya Kazuma turned around and left. Before he had taken a few steps, he bumped into Shiana-kian walking from the front carrying a violin bag. Shiana-kian's expression was very calm. "Senior Asaba, have you finished your meal?" Kinya Kazuma shook his head, "There's nothing good to eat anymore. I'm going to go back to the classroom and take a rest." "Didn't you prepare a lunchbox?" Kinya Kazuma shook his head again, "Trouble, I won't eat." He always felt that although Shiana Uman's expression was as calm as in the early days of Love Simulator, her words seemed a bit more passionate. Asahi Kazuma, "Oh, by the way, Shiana-senpai, I may need to ask you something." Shiana-kane, If you don't have anything to eat, Senior Asaba, I brought too many lunch boxes today." The 2 looked at each other. Kinya Kazuma chuckled. Shiana-kian's face changed a little, and the roots of her ears were a little red. "Say first, ×2. Kinya Kazuma was helpless. "How about I talk to you about the things you need help while eating?" The corners of Shiana-kian's beautiful eyes slightly raised. "Yeah." Asahi Kazuma sighed. This is probably the passcode. If he had known at that time that Hien had been curious about him a long time ago, the situation in the subsequent simulation would probably have changed a lot. After all, those who are favored are confident. But soon, his expression changed slightly. Shiana-kian decided to have dinner on the rooftop. Yes, it was the rooftop where he danced with her in the 3 simulations. That's right. Usually, except for couples, Few people come up to the rooftop. She attracts a lot of attention in school, so it would be good to find a place with few people to chat. Asaba Kazuma did not deceive Lily, he really had something to do with Shianakane. He just didn't expect that she would bring him to the rooftop by such a coincidence. This place holds many memories between him and her. Just standing here, he felt his emotions begin to fluctuate. Suddenly I wanted to hug her tightly. Asahi Kazuma spent a lot of determination to suppress this feeling. Now is not the time. Want to talk about something first, he said. Shianakian shook her head, eat first. She untied the lunch bag in her hand. This is a 4-layer lunch box. To put it bluntly, it seems exaggerated at first glance. Asaba Kazuma remembered that her appetite was not that good in her memory. He looked at Shianakane with some suspicion. Shianakane tilted her head and looked at him. After a moment, Kinya Kazuma actually avoided her gaze. Oops, poor choice of location. If it had been any other place, he would have been able to stare at her until she turned away and her ears turned red. But this is the rooftop. It is the place that holds countless beautiful memories of him in the love simulation. Here, just suppressing the surging emotions is already the limit. When she looks at her like this again. I can't stand it, I really can't stand it. Shianauman laughed secretly. When he turned his head, there was a planning expression on his face. He's shy, he, as expected, you still deduced into the future. Shianauman silently opened the lunchbox layer by layer. She used her chopsticks to carefully dig a portion of the rice onto the lunchbox lid, and then said. Before, I ate alone. I only had one set of chopsticks, so we made do with it. Chianu Kazuma, huh? He looked at the lid of the rice box she handed over and said awkwardly, how about you eat first? How do you feel? The progress in reality is faster than in my simulation. Chianu Kazuma was a little doubtful about life for a while. Could it be that the fancy way I played in the simulation was the reason why the relationship didn't advance fast enough? Shianakian thought for a moment and then said, it's really troublesome to eat like this. Right, Kinya Kazuma said helplessly. Then let's find a more convenient way. She put the rice on the bento cover back into the bento box, took a spoonful of it herself, picked up a piece of tempura and put it in her mouth. After taking a bite, he scooped up the rice with a spoon and handed it to Asaba Kazuma. Asaba Kazuma ate it in one bite as usual, and then his expression became a little stiff. This is not in a simulation, no, why did you just start feeding? Shianakian picked up another thick egg with chopsticks and said, eat. Qian Yufengjian was a little embarrassed and didn't know whether to speak for a moment. Shianakane was unhappy, if you don't eat, I won't be able to continue eating. I'm hungry. He sighed, what else could he say? Eat the thick egg in one bite. Wow, her thick egg roast is indeed delicious. But something went wrong, and he suddenly said, Senior Shiana, will you feed other people like this? He didn't know whether to be happy or unhappy. Shianakane was a little surprised, but still said seriously, Asaba-san is different. As if worried that he wouldn't believe it, he emphasized, you are the first. Then he added another sentence in his heart, he is also the only one. Of course, she is not so bold to say this now, so she can only carefully hide her daughter's concerns in her heart. Asaba Kazuma actually knew that she would reply like this. But when he heard her say this, he still cheered involuntarily. The two of them were on the rooftop, sharing the same tableware. The sun was shining brightly on the rooftop that day. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 110. So, what do you need me to do for you? After finishing the meal, Shianakian looked at him quietly with her dark eyes, a little doubtful in her eyes. In the recent period, I am going to make a handwritten mad, which needs some new music. I may need your help in recording it, Shiana-senpai. Handwriting? What is that? Qian Yufengma smiled and talked to her about the content of handwriting. To put it simply, with the rise of online videos in recent years, MAD, a type of notification-produced videos, has appeared. For example, the animation editing videos popular on Bilibili are one type of MAD. Handwriting is a relatively niche type among them. This word first appeared in the Japanese video website Nico Nico Animation, as a tag of MAD video. The reason why it is called handwriting refers to the fact that the pictures used in the video need to be drawn by the producer himself, and then paired with music and lyrics to create the corresponding MAD, which is a very troublesome type of MAD. After all, just asking producers to draw their own pictures can already filter out quite a lot of people. In other words, there are two main common forms of handwriting. One is to make up pictures based on music from beginning to end, and the other is to restore pictures based on the original existing cultural and creative products. Obviously, because the difficulty of production is very different, the latter is the mainstream type of handwriting today, but this time, I want to do the first type. Shiana-yuan nodded. In the dream, he was a new and popular supervisor in the industry, and his handwriting could only be said to be overqualified. After all, the upgraded version of handwriting, isn't it the up of the animation? So, you want me to help you create a soundtrack related to handwriting? Do you want to adapt the soundtrack? She looked at him curiously. No, I'm going to make music that hasn't been done before. Asaba Kazuma said seriously. When Shiana-kian heard what he said, her heart skipped a beat. She knew he had musical talent. In the dream, he gave me a violin song Night of Confession. Although it is not the kind of music score that has been passed down from generation to generation, it is better because the mood is appropriate and the music is melodious and graceful when played. Now that he said he wanted to make new music, she didn't hesitate. Junior, do you want to make more money? Shiana-yuan said curiously. Asahi Kazuma nodded. I have my eye on a company, and as expected, I should be able to earn a good sum of money in a short period of time through them. Shiana-uman understood. She also needs money now. Not for myself, but for him. After integrating the dream memories, she already has enough understanding of gene stabilization reagents and gene adjustment reagents, and also knows the direction of the development of these things. Give her some time and some reliable scientific research equipment, and there is still a certain chance that she will be able to reproduce the technology in her dream. She wants to save him. But now the problem is, to do this, she needs money. Shiana-yuan is already thinking about how to get financial support from her family. But now it seems that he already has a plan. That's right. After all, Kazuma can predict the future. He is much better at making money than I am. Shiana-yuan, who figured out the key, didn't interrupt anymore. Just cooperate with him directly. What she didn't know was that Asaba Kazuma actually wanted to produce my original music. But after all, he is really not the kind of shameless guy who can take the wisdom of others in his previous life as his own as a matter of course. So he used the term music that has never been heard before to describe it. Just let the flowers of culture from the previous life bloom in this life. Although I know a little bit about music, it's only about the violin. For other soundtracks, I can't find a suitable candidate here for the time being. I heard that Shiana-senpai is good at various musical instruments, so I wanted to ask you. I agreed. Ah. Shiana-uman answered so simply that Asaba Kazuma felt at a loss for a moment. Just agreed. Shiana-kian nodded, as long as you wish. Kinyo Kazuma didn't know what to say for a moment. It's not right. This situation is wrong. In the dating simulation, he conquered the romantic partner, but in reality, he became the romantic simulated partner and conquered him. To obey or not to obey? Seeing how confident she was, he made his choice without hesitation. From I do hope Shiina-senpai can come and help me. This is true both for emotional and practical reasons. It is very troublesome to cultivate a soundtrack team from scratch, but this trouble is not a problem for Shiina Yuan. Although her best instrument is indeed the violin, in school, most people only know that she is very good at the violin. But only a relatively small number of people know that Shiina Yuan is good at most of the instruments used in regular soundtracks. Although there is a certain gap compared to those who are specialized, Shiina Kian learned the instrument under the leadership of her mother when she was young, and she has used it throughout her life. This may be why in the simulation, it was difficult for her to escape from the exquisite birdcage built for her at home. I heard from people in the vocal club that Shiina-senpai knows a lot of musical instruments. I could ask some people to do the music, but in the end it won't be as thoughtful as the discussion between you and me. Asaba Kazuma spends a considerable part of his time in school. If he really wants to make music, it would be the best thing to be able to handle the preliminary communication work in school. After all, it's not like he just did the score once. What do you need me to do? This is the score for this time's soundtrack. Please take a look at it, senior sister. Asaba Kazuma handed over the music sheet. Shiina Kian glanced at it and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately it's not confession night. The score of The Night of Confession is a love letter he sent to her to celebrate his escape from the birdcage. She didn't want to be heard. Give me the violin. Asaba Kazuma approached her, and she obediently took off her violin bag and handed it to him. This is my birthday gift from my mother, she said seriously. Kinya Kazuma nodded and understood her expression. I hope you will take pity on me. She was becoming less and less disguised in front of him. Asaba Kazuma took the violin out of the bag, but did not notice that the distance between the two became a little closer. Even when he was feeding just now, Shiina Kian was not so close to him. Now she took the violin directly from the violin bag she was carrying, and she could almost feel his breathing. So what if you have experience in the simulation? After all, there is a veil between you. Being so close to him in reality, she subconsciously held her breath for fear that he would notice something unusual. But, after all, it was still too close, and I could smell the smell of washing liquid that had not completely dissipated from him. Sniff, 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 sniff. Shiina Yuan's nose twitched slightly. The smell of this washing liquid was different from what she had smelled before. Junior Kinya really likes to use lemon-flavored laundry detergent, she said softly. Ah, sorry, I was too close. He took out the violin and stepped back slightly. Shiina Kian shook her head and said, no, I mean it smells good, it's a smell that I can remember right away. But why isn't there a lemon scent today? Shiina Yuan was a little confused. In her dreams, she occasionally used perfume, so she was somewhat sensitive to scents. He doesn't use perfume, but the floor cleaning products he chooses every day are either mint or lemon. But today's clothes smell a little too sweet. This kind of smelling detergent is more like the kind of smell commonly used by young ladies who like to smell good all over. She had some doubts in her heart, and Kinya Kazuma blushed at what she said. The senior sister is really getting better and better at flirting, and I don't know who taught her this. Oh, I taught you, then it's okay. Asahi Kazuma tried hard to calm down her mood, set up the violin, and started playing. Shiina Kane leaned against the wall, looking at him quietly with her beautiful eyes, her long eyelashes fluttering, so beautiful. Asaba Kazuma didn't dare to look at her for a while, so he simply closed his eyes and began to play related music, relying on the memory he had absorbed and the touch that came with strengthening his nerve reflexes. The melodious sound of the violin echoed on the rooftop, and Shiina Kian opened her eyes slightly. Huh? This level is a little bit awesome. Does Kazuma still do this? Slowly, the more she heard, the more uncomfortable she became. When he first started, the sound produced by Asaba Kazuma seemed a bit jerky. Although his technique was good, it was only pleasant to the ears. But soon, the raw feeling gradually melted away, and the played notes began to become silky, with an indescribable softness around the fingers, as if to engulf the listener. It feels like, well, a world-class violinist who hadn't played for a long time picked up the violin again. Under the repeated pulling of the bow, the strings gradually went from being still to completely adapting to the speed. Enjoying silky smooth playing is an indescribable joy for Shiina, who has an absolute sense of tone. What Asahi Kazuma didn't notice was that the melodious and moving sound of the piano finally attracted some people's attention. Lily, who was passing by near the entrance of the corridor, was one of them. After hearing the sound, he quietly went upstairs. She also has the ability to appreciate, so she naturally knows how powerful such technology is. But before she could walk up curiously, the performance stopped, and then she heard a familiar voice. "That's pretty much it, Shiina-senpai. I'll leave it to you for the rest of the music." Eh? Is this voice Asahi Kazuma? Is he playing the violin? Then, another thought came to her mind. It turns out he didn't lie. He really wanted to exchange violin with Shiina-senpai, and he seemed to have asked someone to help him compose a soundtrack. It seems I misunderstood him. Lily Garcia is a person who knows how to reflect on herself. After discovering that this was not Pua but a misunderstanding, I couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Was she too sensitive and wrongly blamed others? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 111. Location, Shibuya Heise Entertainment Company. Address. Fai's Entertainment is not a big company. The earliest game of Faishi Entertainment can be traced back to 6 years ago. At that time, the founder, who was just in college, used a homemade flash engine to develop a very ordinary side-scrolling game. But being able to develop such a game in a university has undoubtedly proven its potential. The founder easily won the championship of the college student game development competition that year. Later, the founder of this company, together with 3 like-minded friends, established the original Faishi studio with the aim of developing works that would make players smile. After establishing the studio, they targeted the Gal Game group, whose gameplay is relatively simple but has a considerable gaming audience. Limited by the traditional Gal game format, in the beginning, Faishi Studio mainly produced linear games that relied on plot promotion to shape characters step by step and form a relatively complete story system. The game that was born out of this is Faishi Studio's first two-dimensional development game, Kyunyu. This game has been created with a lot of effort, because compared to the mechanics of ordinary Gal games, it has a different gameplay. Depending on the level of character development, the plot lines that can be unlocked will also be different. Coupled with the right copywriting and character design, it gained a small reputation in the Gal game circle at that time, and also created the glorious starting point of Kyunyu, which is now on sale. Based on the further development of Kyunyu, SLG's two-dimensional love game Kyunyu quickly aroused the popularity of old players after it was launched, and soon attracted a large number of new L players, S players, P. Therefore, after the game became popular, Fai's studio quickly transformed into Fai's Entertainment, taking a small step forward and becoming a game company that has recently become somewhat famous among players. Well, the size is still a bit small. But everyone was still happy. After all, once this game comes out, everyone in the studio will have money. However, what is a bit frustrating is that Faishi Entertainment has been questioned by some players recently after the game version was updated. Founder Ichiri Takagi looked at the recent comments from players with some headache, looked at several core developers in the conference room and said, "The reaction from the players seems to be a bit overwhelming. Development team leader Kuri Hanayui said with a headache, "I still lack experience, and the latest DLC is not polished enough. It is definitely not bad, but compared to the main plot, players' expectations are still misplaced. Of course, the main thing is that we ask players to pay to download the DLC. If it were free, they might be more tolerant." Takagi Ichiri shook his head. "We have to find a way to make up for it, Yui. During this period of time, let's all work overtime together and find a way to speed up the launch of the next DLC. The fine-tuning of the copywriting and gameplay must be done well this time, and then, if you lower the price slightly, you can give back to the players." The chestnut flowers fell to Yui and she felt sad for a moment. Players are really very realistic creatures. When you're playing well, the noise is almost inaudible. But as long as you want to stand high and instruct players on how to play the game, the players will in turn teach you how to behave. She was fascinated by the popularity of the game when it was first released. Players have opinions about the DLC release this time. In addition to the fact that the content is not polished well, it is also the result of her relaxing her vigilance. Such a mistake will never happen again. Liwaluyi gritted her teeth and assured her friends. In fact, it is impossible for any game to be loved by all players. The new DLC of Kyunula can at least be rated as excellent. However, compared with the feedback from Kyunula players some time ago, the positive feedback from the DLC to the development team this time has indeed dropped by more than a margin. It is no wonder that Takagi Kazuri, an otaku who has been deeply involved in technology, has to come out for meetings. Don't be afraid of always being bad, just be afraid of gaps. Without hope, there will naturally be no disappointment. Komura Kage, one of the founders of the Fishi 4, who was paying close attention to the backstage, had a strange expression, and his confused voice attracted the attention of several people. "Ing, what's wrong?" Takagi Ichiri asked subconsciously. His first reaction was, wouldn't there be another player who had an opinion and then took the lead in the game comment area? Is it possible that the game he worked so hard on will later go to buy the lowest rating of Three Kingdoms? No. Everyone has worked really hard. Just thinking about the unknown future made Takagi Ichiri start to feel a headache. Don't worry, boss. It's not a bad thing. Some players praised us for our good game advertising. Advertise? Takagi Ichiri was stunned for a moment. What advertisement? We don't have enough money to develop games, how can we have money to advertise? FI's Entertainment is not one of those big companies. The money spent on advertising by top companies may be higher than their company's total budget for game development. Wait a minute, I checked, it seems that users are coming from Twitter, YouTube, Pixif and Nico Nico. Our official account is a bit busy today. Takagi Ichiri stood up directly and went to Komura Kage's computer to observe the situation. Now that they have their official account on Twitter, it can be said to be very lively. Awesome, my Feeksin. One thing to say, I love this style of painting so much. I got tired of hearing my friends talk about it some time ago and didn't want to play it at all, but MRS Sasashi is really awesome. What madam? Kinchi's account is a joint account between the master and the apprentice. The young apprentice is the wife of the family, and the one who is the master is a boy. It doesn't matter, I can't spare any money. FSE Entertainment, you guys are really rich. You are so willing to spend money. Please help me. Let me tell you something, this handwriting, this music, it's so humming outrageous. These words were said so haphazardly that Takagi Ichiri had no idea what was going on. What's going on? He looked at Komura Kage with clear and stupid eyes. Komura Kage clicked on his phone. I went to search, it should be because of this. She handed over the phone. Takagi Izato looked at the screen, and then saw a several-minute video and long tweet under a Twitter account called Asashi's Drawing Board. This is... He first clicked on the long tweet. The general meaning of the long tweet was that this owner really liked Kunyu, which is currently killing everyone in the SLG love game, and then out of interest, he liked Kunyu. The 6 heroines of the main plot and a new heroine of the latest DLG plot have been recreated. At the bottom, there are 7 illustrations of the second female protagonist. Takagi Ichiri took one look and was stunned. It's beautiful. I like it. This is the heroine of my dreams. No, the heroine in this illustration is the real one. Komura pushed up his glasses and said with some surprise, it's so exquisite, as if they are the official. Boss, did you really not spend money to hire someone? That's Mr. Kinchi, a very powerful cartoonist. Cartoonist, Takagi was stunned for a moment. It is said that the person who is mainly in charge of this account is actually a popular cartoonist on Weekly Shonen Jump. Because his drawing style is so exquisite and his strength is so strong, he directly went to an animation company to serve as the general animation supervisor. It is said that it will be broadcast in October this year. What is it called? Reincarnation of the Succubus. Because the painting style is so beautiful, the promotion PV has just been released, and the popularity has exploded. Li Hualuoyi was stunned for a moment, took out her phone and rummaged through it, then her pupils shrank suddenly and she subconsciously said, "Go to YouTube and Nico Nico." This, brother Ili, you really didn't spend money to hire someone. Takagi Ichiri directly opened the app and searched for relevant accounts. Then I saw a video Kunyu/ handwritten under the Scarlet Moon, Crazy Saki no Ju. The playback volume shown above is 1.7 million. What is this? Million views? Do you understand what the value of 1 million views is? The official promotional advertisement released by Kunyu has not been played as much as others. He took another look at the release time. Yesterday? What the hell is this? No, it's only been 20 hours? Who stole the company's money to advertise? That's weird, look at it again. A plant. Damn, it's not an ad. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 112. Location, Ishihara's house. Asaba, Slag, and Kazuma were sitting on the boss's chair, holding Rina Ishihara, who was a little shy but still insisted on feeding him fruit, in his arms. A complete picture of the depravity of King Zhou of Shang Dynasty. If outsiders see it, they can only stare at Rina Ishihara speechlessly and complain, just pet him. Since last week it was determined that he would build the plank road openly and secretly destroy the warehouse and become the controller of Faishi Entertainment, Asahi Kazuma formulated a whale-swallowing plan. Faishi Entertainment is actually not short of funds at present. Kunyu is in a state of great sales after its release. Even the new paid DLC, although not as well received as the main game, is still considered excellent. It is foreseeable that in the next quite some time, they only need to maintain the game step by step, calm down and concentrate on the subsequent DLC development, and tell the story well, and they will be able to make money for a long time. That's not to say that Faishi Entertainment is really tough and has no intention of selling itself at a good price. But the problem is, Asahi Kazuma really can't afford this price. Now the value of Faishi Entertainment is constantly increasing with the in-depth development of the potential of Kunyu. If the animation studio turned the corner and the funds invested by Asahi Kazuma to start the construction were successfully transferred out, maybe he could acquire the company with the money on hand, but it would still violate his original intention. His purpose in acquiring this company was to control Kunyu and make a lot of money, rather than to take advantage of stupid people with too much money. He had another use for the money to start the construction. This is how the whale-swallowing plan was born. Sister, do you know what is needed most for a company like this that is immersed in the world of game technology and plot development? Asahi Kazuma ate a grape that she had peeled, and licked it on her clean and white fingers. There was amusement in her eyes. She looked at the video data that was still rising in the background of the computer, and her eyes gradually became meaningful. Profound. Should technology and philosophy be of the same mind? Ishihara, who was leaning sideways, picked up a small piece of apple again and handed it over. Asahi Kazuma looked up, and Ishihara's clear eyes were filled with ignorance and curiosity. She was bullied by Asahi Kazuma every day, so she had a broad mind, otherwise she would have fought back. Don't eat it. I feel uncomfortable after eating apples. Kinya Kazuma waved his hand and continued to look at the skyrocketing data on the oil pipe, slightly restraining his wildness. I muttered secretly in my heart. Sister, I have prepared a chair for you today, but you should sit next to me. It's not easy for me to withstand this. In order to distract himself and control the fascinating thoughts in his mind, he said. For Faishi Entertainment now, there are two things they need most. One is a channel for external publicity, and the other is sufficient technical capabilities. If it were other games, the impact on our side might not be that big, but Kunyulu is a two-dimensional game, so from a technical point of view, they are definitely defeated by me. I have thrown out the propaganda bait, and the next step is to invite you into the urn. Ishihara nodded in understanding, and then handed the apple over. Eat some. There was a hint of pleading in her voice. Asaba Kazuma was helpless. I really don't like apples very much. Eating too much will make my stomach uncomfortable. Ishihara lowered her head. In the past few days, Asahi Kazuma had been eating dinner at her house. At first, she wanted to make as many delicious things as possible so that he could eat happily. But after eating for several days, she suddenly realized that her diet was somewhat unbalanced. So today she carefully asked him if she could adjust the recipe to make it a little healthier. No way. Many times, eating well and eating healthily are contradictory. Not many people can handle it well. Fortunately, he agreed, so today she tried her best to make a dinner that was not as delicious and rich as before, but was very healthy. However, she felt that he was still lacking some dietary fiber. So after resting for a while after dinner, she cut a plate of fruit and brought it up. There was watermelon, his favorite, but there were also some apples. To be honest, she was extremely shy every time he bit her fingertips. But she was responsible for his body, so she could only let the little knight be arrogant and tease her again and again. But he just doesn't like eating apples. Every time I feed him apples, he shows a very resistant expression. If you put it down any longer, the apples will oxidize and they will not look good or taste good. Asaba Kazuma was helpless. The main reason is that apples don't taste good. If it's apple candy, let's talk about it separately. Ishihara didn't speak, just lowered her head and thought for a moment. Then she started to blush and said, I've already finished brushing my teeth. Kinya Kazuma didn't understand what she meant for a while, but then he saw her holding an apple in her mouth, raising her head and trying to get it closer to his mouth. He gasped. Well, sister, if I say it's not delicious, why don't you just serve yourself as the main dish? Although Rina Ishihara didn't speak, her attitude was probably like this. At this time, Asahi Kazuma stopped being a gentleman. She ate it from beginning to end until the food was shamefully swept away from her lips and teeth. She took 2 or 3 bites, then snorted softly, and her expression seemed to become a little happier. Rina Ishihara, who raised her head, had sparkles in her eyes. With her true face revealed, if she walked on the street, I don't know how many girls would have to lower their heads. But now, she was hiding in the small room, nestled in his arms. This feeling really shouldn't be too wonderful. Restraint. Chien Kazuma, you have to exercise restraint. If you continue like this, you will really be corrupted. Asahi Kazuma finally understood what the gentle village hero tomb is. This bone-gnawing ecstasy is no wonder that in ancient times there were always kings who did not go to court early. How morning is it? It feels so good to be drunk and lying on a beautiful woman's knees. Fortunately, he had strong willpower and suppressed this emotion. Today's apples taste a lot better. Qian Yufengjian said calmly. Ishi Hararina lowered her head shyly and stammered, then, next time I do this, can you eat more? Asahikazuma nodded. Mainly because it's really delicious. Then he looked backstage again. According to the current situation, I am afraid that in the next few days, this handwriting will have tens of millions of clicks. Sister, do you know that in the internet age where traffic is king, although self-media often cause trouble in order to gain traffic, there is one thing that deserves recognition, and that is, on the online platform, strength is king after all. The song Under the Scarlet Moon, Crazy Saki no Zetsu is a typical toxic electronic music song. As the character song of Flandra, the second young lady in the Tuhao Project game in the previous life, it aroused the carnival of countless car fans as soon as it was born. Dongfang looks like Chawan at first glance, so many old fans of Dongfang will directly nickname the IP under Dongfang Project as Chawan. In the early years, Chawan was almost the top among Japanese anime fans. Time has passed, and by the time Asaba Kazuma traveled through the world, there were not that many people who still remembered Che-man, but if you had been to a comic show and read the book, there should still be many people who could remember Che-man's grand occasion. But Asahi Kazuma has not forgotten it yet. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huixiang. Chapter 113. Let's talk about something funny, about the inheritance of the Japanese Benza king. The veteran novel kings are Asuka and Lingboli in Eva. These two characters are extremely popular both at home and abroad. There are 1,117 copies of the former and 1,391 copies of the latter in C52. It can be said that it is the well-deserved king of notebooks. After more than 10 years of baptism, its popularity is still high. The status of the king of notebooks has been held for more than 10 times until C67. As for why we only got C67. That's right, because Tuhao Project came out. Comic Market, known as the three-dimensional Holy War, is the largest fan work sales meeting in the past, referred to as CM. Since the C67 session, the popularity of EVA has declined, and the Tuhao series has suddenly emerged. Its character, Hakure Ryemu, a bear-armed Maiko, has become the new book king with 736 copies. Since then, the books of the Tuhao series have always occupied the top 3 of CM. It wasn't until the advent of the C71 Magic Canon era that magical girl Nanoha reluctantly defeated Ryemu Hakure. After that, fight, the character in Magical Girl Nanoha, nearly unified the tentacle world throughout the C7X era. During that period, whenever tentacles were mentioned, fight would be thought of, and then magical girls would be thought of. The indissoluble bond between magical girls and tentacles ushered in a historic surge. However, even in the craziest C71-C75 era of magical girls, there was still an episode. In the C73 session, Sani Tuhao, a newcomer to the Tuhao series, suddenly burst onto the scene. With 514 copies, she overtook Magical Girl and became the book king of the year. Not long after Mio Akiyama won the top spot in C76 Light Music Girl, C77 Dongfeng Valley Sani came again. C78 My Sister Black Cat and Mouse Ba, I should say Kirano, who occupied half of the country back then. Then you sang and I took the stage. First, the Meet King Kashi Wazakasina of I Have Few Friends was born, and then the headless senior Tomo Asami of Pula Magi Madoka Magica showed off her majesty. Later, a second-generation model worker, Asuna from Sword Art Online who has become the memory of countless gentlemen, was born and she was known as Benzina. Later, Shokahao Misaki from Railgun came out. Until C84, the Eastern forces returned again, and the character Ibaraki Hana Aji was elected as the king of the novel at that time. At this point, CM's Eastern era has finally begun to come to an end. Whether it is the later Kantai collection, Qiancheng Glory Amusement Park, or the book King of Dikuo, it can be said that it is difficult to recreate the miracle of the East. As for why? Someone must have noticed something unusual. Yes, if the Oriental series breaks away from the CM platform and rises to the pan-two-dimensional circle, most people may have only heard about it but have not been exposed to it. Whether it is Eva in the early stage, Magical Girl, Sword Art Online, Railgun in the midterm, etc. These fan books actually all have a special carrier, and that is animation. It was not until the Age of Discovery, when the Fleet collection was dominant, that the second book King appeared using games as a carrier. The funny thing is, even Kantai collection later had 2 seasons of anime. In other words, there is almost no animation as an extension carrier for the book King. In the past 20 years, there is only a single seedling of the Tuhao series. Not to mention, they are both anime, but the Tuhao series is actually more pixelated, and most of its games have almost no playability. It is completely different from Kantai Collection, an early two-dimensional game. Painting style. Why don't many people in the pan-two-dimensional circle of later generations know about the Tuhao series? Because there are no qualified animation or game carriers. But it was such an IP with nothing that caused an unprecedented sensation that year, thanks to the carnival of the majority of fan creators. This is a very rare event created by 2 creators. The 2 creators in the East relied on their own efforts to launch a book King that has dominated several eras. It was also during that period that Flandra's character song Under the Scarlet Moon, Crazy Saki no Zetsu came out. To be honest, Chien Kazuma really gave FI's entertainment a great gift. Even if we put aside the influence of the Tuhao series back then, the 2 Tuhao series music pieces, Under the Scarlet Moon, Crazy Saki no Zetsu and Bad Apple, still have an indescribable model. In the short video era, the former has also become the soundtrack of many black short videos. It has become popular in software owned by a company whose heart can only beat 1 byte. Not to mention, in this great gift, the music is secondary. The animation drawn by Isaba Kazuma is the real king of bombs. He looked at the comment section of YouTube. Faye SE Entertainment, my god, this promotional advertisement is so awesome. For newcomers who have never played Kyunulu, I would like to ask secretly, is this game fun? It's fun, it must be fun. Just for this video, I am determined to play Kyunulu. To be fair, this doesn't seem to be an advertisement. It's so funny, are you telling me that a production of this level is not an advertisement? One thing to say, this is really not true. I looked at the publisher and found that he is an individual owner, not an official person of the game. Don't look at it, things are blowing up in Japan now. The poster Kinchi's drawing board is a well-known cartoonist here. He shares the account with his apprentice. He is among the illustrators on Pixov. I'm about to become a god. Hasn't anyone paid attention to the soundtrack Under the Scarlet Moon, Crazy Saki no Zetsu? It's really magical. I've seen it a long time ago. Chien Shija composed the music and lyrics himself, and then asked his classmates to help with the music. It's completely original. Even every frame of the picture in the video was drawn by him. I declare that the most powerful fan work has been born. From beginning to end, there is not a single drop of original work. I don't understand. I'm shocked. Do you have the ability to not make animations but to make fan fiction for others? Friendly reminder, the master in Asashi Boss is himself the general supervisor of Animation Studio's new work Reincarnation of Succubus. Trivia, Succubus Reincarnated is a light manga, and the light novel was written by Mr. Asashi himself. Hot knowledge, I am still a high school student. It is said that my grades are very good and I can be admitted to Tokyo University. A smile appeared at the corner of Asahikazuma's lips. Now, whether on YouTube, Little Blue Bird, or in the parallel world on platforms such as Weibo, Douyin, and Bilibili, the number of his fans is skyrocketing. He has opened the accounts of Asashi's drawing board and Asaba Kazuma on all platforms. Now he is killing everyone with his character drawings specially drawn for Kunyulu and the handwriting videos he released. With all the gimmicks, the strength is openly displayed in front of everyone, and the fans who come in the wind will surely gather under the traffic siphon and quickly gather under the relevant accounts. Calculating the time, it should be almost there. A smile appeared on Kinyu Kazuma's lips. He had sent people to investigate several founders of FI's Entertainment. In his words, these founders are all idealists with their own abilities. Although the ending of idealists is often not so good, those who can escape from the cage have a high probability of becoming the scourge of the new generation. Even though he was the penguin who was criticized by countless people in his previous life, he didn't have an idealistic work like God of War. It can be said that in the gaming industry, capable idealists will quickly expand into the next behemoth once they successfully pass the early stages. As for whether dragon slayers will become evil dragons in the future, that will happen many years later. But at least for now, the ecology of FI's Entertainment is still very clean and pure. Clear and stupid young rookies are often the easiest to be moved by small benefits. So, when Rina Ishihara took an apple slice and fed him another mouthful, his phone rang. It was an unknown phone call. Asahikazuma connected directly. "Hello, this is Kinyu Studio, what can I do?" "Hello, are you the super rookie of Weekly Shonen Jump, the new god on Pics of Illustration Online, the general supervisor of the animation studio, the creator of Reincarnated Succubus, Kunyulo / Handwritten Under the Scarlet Moon, the upmaster of Crazy Saki no Zetsu?" "Asaba Kazuma? What about the name of the dish? Do you want me to call out Daenerys Stormborn? Isn't this smell too strong? Oh, I forgot, this is Japan where Chuyunibu is everywhere, so that's okay." He looked at Ishihara Rina, who was leaning on his arm and snickering. A bright smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he reached in fiercely when she was panicking. "You're kidding me, right? I should just eat my sister in one bite." Ishihara Rina's body stiffened. Kinyu Kazuma stopped teasing him, business was more important. He lowered his voice, regained his composure and said, "It's me." "What's wrong?" "Ah, Mr. Kinyu, I am your fan." Asahikazuma. Do not know why. This time his expression was really a little confused. "May I ask you are?" "Ah, Mr. Kinyu, I'm not joking. We are really your fans. We are FI'Shi Entertainment, the company that developed the Kunyu recording handbook you released yesterday. We specially called you today to say thank you." Hee. On the other end of the phone, Liwaluoyui, who was using the speakerphone, looked at the four giants gathered together and said in a low voice, "Why do you feel that Mr. Chienyu has a problem with us?" Takagi Ichiri also lowered his voice and said, "Let's say thank you properly first, and then show our sincerity. We must win the commercial rights of the handwriting and character drawings no matter what. This is much better than advertising ourselves." Liwaluoyui nodded and said gently to the other end of the phone, "Dear Chienyu, we were actually gathering together just now to read your handwriting. To be honest, I'm really grateful that I could trouble you to create such an excellent work and further expand the reputation of Kunyulu. Why do you think I value your game so much?" Chienyu Fengjian said calmly. "Ah." Li Hualuoyuyi was a little dumbfounded. "You've already given me such a big gift, why don't you do this if you don't like it?" Generally speaking, there are three reasons for doing secondary surgery. One is simply liking it and wanting to create something new in this area. One is that the work is popular enough to make money through secondary creation. The last one is, I simply think originality is too good, so I'll do my best. Qian Yufengjian said the words extremely calmly, which made the four giants of Phis extremely shocked. I'm sorry, it may be a bit cruel to say it. I think your company's copywriting and gameplay are quite to my liking, but your work from modeling to character design to advertising is a complete mess. Ah. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huixiang. Chapter 114. Takagi Ichiri scratched his forehead with raised hairline. Why do you feel like you were scolded? The general manager of planning, Daigo Misawa, coughed and said, this matter has nothing to do with me. I can't be the only one being hunted, right? Every year, the game industry plans a horse that can be greeted by players that can circle the earth. Apparently, the chief planner of the Scarlet Four has not gotten used to being sacrificed by players every day. As soon as he said these words, Komori Ying's face turned dark. The game industry is like this. There are always people who are going to be hunted. If Misawa Daigo quits, does it mean that she, who is also responsible for game promotion, will take the blame? Before Komori Kage could get angry, Takagi Ichiri said. Mr. Asaba, I am Kazuri Takagi from Faishi Entertainment. I am very honored to meet you. I am extremely sorry that Kyunula failed to satisfy the players who trusted us. After Takagi Ichiri said these words, Asahi Kazuma's voice at the phone desk became a little embarrassed. Of course, with this tone, it is obvious that Kinyu, Yandi, and Kazuma are online again. He said in a helpless tone, the main reason is to find out if you don't have much money. I think the gameplay and copywriting are quite interesting, but in other aspects I am really a bit careless. Takagi Ili nodded heavily and said, Faishi Entertainment barely managed to break even after the release of Kyunulu. We still have considerable shortcomings in publicity and vertical painting design. Yeah, it's really uncomfortable to read. It's like seeing that your favorite light novel is about to be adapted into a manga by P9. It's really heartbreaking to read. Location, Ishihara's house. Rina Ishihara moved restlessly, and the corners of Asahi Kazuma's mouth twitched slightly. My sister, we are chatting on the phone. If you continue to be restless, I will kill you directly. As if she noticed that Asahi Kazuma's gaze was starting to become dangerous, she timidly stopped moving and just pointed to the bathroom behind her. Kinyu Kazuma understood and let go of the hand that had been holding her tightly. Ishihara Rina breathed a sigh of relief, and just as she was about to stand up, she heard Asaba Kazuma say. Yeah, it's really uncomfortable to read. It's like seeing that your favorite light novel is about to be adapted into a manga by P9. It's really heartbreaking to read. Rina Ishihara almost laughed out loud. P9, full name Project No.9, Animation Production Company. Over the years, P9 has adhered to the spirit of craftsmanship and successfully demonstrated to the outside world how perfunctory they can be when making light-edited comics, and what PPT animation is. Especially in the past 2 years, light novel lovers will instantly change their minds once they hear that their favorite light novels have been adapted into animations. After all, it's basically all miserably animated. When she stood up, she subconsciously looked at Kinha Kazuma. He had a fox-like smile on his face, and he was obviously thinking of a scheme in his heart. But the words that came out of his mouth had an extremely clean tone, as if they were purely for the good of the other person, with a clear stupidity unique to college students. Not to mention, this kind of "it's okay to be a bitch" voice, if it comes to those companies that have passed the growth stage and have completely become a money-making tool, they will be the target of being squeezed. But the problem is, the person on the other end of the phone is Faishi Entertainment, a new company that has just passed the trough period and finally showed some potential as a cash cow. When such a dream has not been tainted by money, and the company itself is still in its most vigorous period. The four founders of Sci-fi Entertainment are just little karami in the eyes of others, let alone being compared with those giants in the industry. Not even a mid-sized gaming company. Yes, even Ishihara Rina couldn't understand why Asaba Kazuma attached so much importance to this company. What Asaba Kazuma said to Rina and Kian was that he wanted to get involved in the game industry in the future, so he needed a game company to serve as a bridge. A company like Sci-fi Entertainment, which was fledgling but already had some confidence, was the most suitable target. But in Ishihara Rina's view, such a small company, let alone cooperating with Asaba Kazuma, even if it goes to Weekly Shonen Jump to buy the game adaptation rights of Asaba Kazuma's comics, it will be used by Shueisha to watch snakes. The sick eyes sent them away directly. Why does it need a special ending? She can only explain it by saying that her husband likes this company's games very much and the company does not need external investment for the time being. Otherwise, there is really no reason to spend so much energy on giving a big gift. Hey, why do I call you idiot husband? Ishihara Rina's face turned rosy and she hurried to the bathroom. The conversation between Kinya Kazuma and Sci-fi Entertainment continues. After a long time, he finally hung up the phone with a subtle expression on his face. Now just wait for the fish to bite. Location, Shibuya Hishi Entertainment. The founders looked at each other with a rare look of embarrassment on their faces. Takagi scratched his hair, looking troubled. Misawa Daigo on the side patted him on the shoulder. Stop scratching, you don't have much hair left. Takagi Ichiri's expression froze, and finally he slowly let go of his hand. It will grow back. Liwaluyi looked quite proud. Did you see that Mr. Kinyu is quite satisfied with our content? Takagi Ichiri sighed. It's a pity that young man is unwilling to give us the copyright of those vertical paintings and handwriting. Komura snorted coldly. Why should I give it to you? To put it bluntly, they just used our character design, and even the pictures were hand-drawn by myself. If you didn't feel that we were incompetent and you really liked it, you would choose to take the initiative to help promote it. After all, you don't really think that the explosion of other people's illustrations and calligraphy videos has anything to do with us, do you? Komura Kage ruthlessly exposed the truth. Takagi Ely felt that his head was so itchy that he almost had a brain. I'm not so shameless. We originally wanted to buy it with money, but... A trace of confusion flashed across Misawa Dao's face. I can understand Ely's thinking. I really hope these things are ours. No, it would be great if we had these things from the beginning. But now it seems that we may have made Mr. Kinyu a little dissatisfied. Takagi Ichiri tapped his fingers lightly on the table, closed his eyes, pondered for a moment and then said, it is normal to be dissatisfied with this kind of thing. They have no duty to help us at all, let alone our subordinates. Their current cash flow alone is probably more than ours. Li Hualuoyi pushed up her glasses and said helplessly, just from the soundtrack, this handwriting has nothing to do with us. It could be Kunyulu or any kind of original work. Based on this style of painting, those who don't know it might think that some major company has acquired a big IP and is preparing to devote manpower to animation. And you know, I like to watch animations. I have heard of this guy. He is a super genius. He is not in the same circle as us. What we long for is just something that is within reach for others. The animation studio's new animation has a lot of investment in it, and he is still the general director. After Li Hualuoyi finished speaking, everyone looked at each other, feeling a little sad for a moment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 115. Nothing makes them feel worse than this feeling. Takagi Ichiri shook his head and said, I really like this handwriting. To be honest, if we really have to contact it ourselves, it would be difficult to get this kind of thing without spending a lot of effort and money. But this is a false proposition, and our company cannot do it. Everyone lowered their heads, Understanding what Takagi Ichiri meant. There are some industries that don't mean you can get in if you want to. Typically, in the film industry in the previous life, if outsiders wanted to get into it, they basically had to pay a premium for tuition. You never know what kind of disgusting things those people in this industry can do. They can even twist the generally dirty unspoken rules in the industry into the experiences of a few unlucky ones, and then induce generations of new people who are chasing fame and fortune to step into the industry. In this line of work, the ups and downs in the industry have become leaks harvested by them. Let me just ask you a question: if life was really so comfortable, there would be no artists who, after taking off, would try their best to break away from the company in the form of a studio and pursue a solo career. It's one thing to want to make money, but it's another thing not to want to continue to be miserable. When the circle is filled with the trend of becoming a dog to emperor ama that has been passed down from the previous era, and it hits the increasingly manic new era, there will naturally be a violent collision. This situation is the same when it is applied to this kind of publicity circle. A layman wants to enter this circle? Okay, let's get slaughtered first and be the one who gets taken advantage of honestly. Just think about how the Sino-Japanese co-produced animation was made to look bad. It's really like that. It's not that it has no strength, you know. Just kill you like a pig. After killing them, they will slap their butts and leave, leaving you with chicken feathers everywhere. Maybe they will dare to say to you in front of you, "Welcome to animation." What can you do with it? The coal boss failed to do it back then. The penguins waving banknotes and trying to open up a Red Sea failed to do so. Do you want to shake up this inter-industry rule just by showing off the cute entertainment of 3 or 2 big cats and kittens? You know it can't be done? Komurikage's expression was very ugly. Before Kunyula was released, we had no money and people looked down upon us. After Kunyulu became popular, people were willing to help, but they had to kill us first. To be honest, Ely, let's find a way to find some senior operators. After all, I am in charge of technology, so I can't do anything in this area. Like this wave of paid DLC, do you really think we're doing so poorly? That is also our hard work. Is it good or bad? How can we not know? The reason why there are so many negative voices is because we have nothing. When our peers attack us, we act like we are wearing nothing, standing in the wind and letting them point at us. Komurikage's words silenced everyone for a while. Misawa Daigo said, "Second, travel circles like ours are the favorites of the advertising circle and the artist circle, and everyone wants to take a bite of our flesh. If you want to fight a public opinion war, you need money, a platform, and more importantly, prestige and status." Takagi Ichiri sighed and suddenly said, "It would be great if I could get support from people who are really in this circle. For a strong person like Teacher Kinyu, when our company grows in the future, it would be a good thing if we can get a more honest price from him." Everyone nodded after hearing this. This is really not a lie. Without people in this industry to sincerely help introduce it, FI's Entertainment would have to pay a huge premium if they wanted to make a promotional video that suits their wishes. While Takagi Ichiri was sitting there quietly, a seed suddenly germinated in his mind. After hesitating for a moment, he looked uncertain and whispered, "Tell me, how satisfied are you with our game, Mr. Kinyu?" Komori rolled his eyes and said, "If you're not satisfied, you won't be so dissatisfied with the work I'm doing here, but what can I do? Our studio looked like it was half dead before." Takagi Izato looked at Yui Kurihana, who was the main researcher in the technical department and the companion in charge of the copywriting team. He was very familiar with the people in this circle. Maybe this is a home girl. "Yui, do you think Teacher Kanba is great? In other words, how powerful can he be?" Li Hualuo Yui was stunned for a moment, and then said after thinking for a moment, "It's not a question of whether he's good or not, but he has already developed a personal style. Of course, his painting and aesthetic abilities are also quite terrifying. The personal style, painting ability and aesthetic ability are highly unified, Takagi Yisato whispered, then do you think he can help us in this industry? Li Hualuoyi was stunned for a moment, and then her expression changed slightly. Ili, you don't want to drag people onto our ship just because they like to play our games, do you? Takagi Ili lowered his head in shame. I don't want to be like this, but we do need a strong enough main artist, so strong that, in the words of Daxia, save the building from falling. Whether it is for our dreams, for the future development of the company, or for everyone to have enough to eat, I want to do this. Takagi Ichiri became more and more excited as he talked. This is not the ivory tower of a university. This is a big social water with turbid water. Only by letting go of some irrelevant sense of shame and sharpening your teeth and claws can you avoid being captured by the top predators in the turbid water. Kazuma, do you have so much confidence in them? Rina Ishihara said softly. They actually have no choice, Kinya Kazuma said calmly. Sister, do you understand the development of the painter circle? Huh? I haven't paid attention to it. In the past few years, the development trend of painter circles in various countries has been quite consistent. In the early years, when everyone was clamoring for industry pills, it was not just nonsense, but the circle was too deeply involved. Even if it's just a volume, it's still difficult to get ahead, and even many middle and lower level ordinary painters and even original painters can't make a living. However, with the advent of the traffic era, many things have changed. Ishihara Rina tilted her head and sat on him obediently, as if she was listening to what he had to say. Kinya Kazuma gently curled her hair with his fingers and said calmly. The traffic era has given many painters opportunities. When the first painter relies on his management of characters and paintings to create a threshold of painter industry rules for various laymen, some will be deceived. Fans of short videos flock to such people. They will call ma'am while stupidly paying a premium price for this artificial threshold of artist circle rules. Obviously, in the past few years, the global painter circle has undergone earth-shaking changes. Those artists who had no way to join the big production companies and who should have been eliminated due to insufficient technical skills almost invariably followed the steps of the first batch of guys who operated themselves and asked their fans to follow the rules of the artist circle. Blooming all over the circle. Obviously my painting skills have not changed at all, and in your eyes and mine, they are even considered ugly. They have only learned it for a year and a half before running out to make money. They are still the same group of people, but... For a moment, the withered world became bright and clear. Rina Ishihara remained silent. She felt the dissatisfaction that almost burst out from Kinya Kazuma's words. This is the so-called circle, a circle that artificially shapes the threshold, forcing you to downgrade your aesthetics, and then makes all outsiders foot the bill. I know that many of them just want to eat, and I have no interest in breaking the rules of the circle, but if this industry wants to continue to develop, and if we don't want aesthetics to continue to degrade, we must let everyone see what is truly top-notch aesthetics. He gently touched Ishihara Rina's face and whispered, my desire to obtain a controlling stake in FI's entertainment does not conflict with my sincere desire to help them. If they want to enter the industry, they need to pay a heavy price. Now that every penny is used, they can't afford it. But you and I can bring them into the industry and show them what true beauty looks like. This is a fair deal, and both parties get what they need, but now, the one with the upper hand is me. Ishihara Rina stretched out her hand and hugged his neck. Her face was a little red, but she still said firmly. What do you need me to do? Sister, let us become the top predators in this industry. From comics to animation to game main artists, we can use our aesthetics to conquer everyone step by step. Asayu Kazuma lowered his head and whispered in her ear, I want to train my sister to be the most dazzling star in this industry. In this way, I can completely occupy this most delicious fruit. Ishiharina paused for a moment, blinking her eyes, and finally gave a serious reply. Then help me. Good.